Sample reading Psychic Shock. Frater perdurabo, brother, I shall endure to the end. Aleister Crowley, pen name for his Book of Lies, which is also falsely called Breaks. Talking to Donna, but reading Donna's, reading Donna's tarot.blogspot. Have you ever performed a reading which at first glance rendered you speechless, yet a psychic whack of aura so strong you didn't know where to begin? Read more. Posted by Donald Hazel, April 24th, 2014. I'm interested in the part where how you do. Okay. This happened to me while reading for a charity at an event held at the local Masonic Hall. The hall is said to be haunted, and it's conjured that all sorts of things transpired in its underground vaults and tunnels. Who knows? But I certainly became a Crowley babe. Crowley or Crowley? I believe it or not, because I took this on the internet, I still don't know how you pronounce it. I think it's Crowley, but I'm not sure. But I certainly became a Crowley babe of the abyss, and it was a perfectly abysmal reading in every sense that matters. Part 1 of this post will discuss how I ordinarily go about a tarot reading and touches on the nature of the intuitive and the psychic. I will also explain why I chose this particular reading to share. Part 2 recounts what happened during this unexpectedly psychic reading. I'm more interested in part 1. As it happens, purely incidentally, one most sincerely hopes. I'm living where Aleister Crowley used to live. Holy shit. Donna, you live where Aleister Crowley used to live? Again, twice now. But it's a small island. And the text is smaller for that one, but it seems somehow appropriate to model the post around the much demonized occultist Aleister Crowley, given the location of the reading and its quote-unquote debased nature, although Crowley himself was never a Satanist and scorned the self-indulgent people practicing black magic. Quoting Crowley, to practice black magic, you have to violate every principle of science, decency, and intelligence. You must be obsessed with an insane idea of the importance of the petty object of your wretched and selfish desires. I despite the thing such an extent that I can hardly believe in the existence of people so debased and idiotic as to practice it. Source of the quote, the imposing Masonic Hall. Part 1. What is an intuitive tarot reading? What is a psychic tarot reading? What about me? The account that follows isn't the quote-unquote normal process during my readings. There is no one quote-unquote right way to read the cards, and there's a lot of dispute about how to distinguish between what counts as intuitive, what counts as psychic, and how these inform a reading. I still want to see what your normal process is. Because it sounds like you're talking about a tangent, about intuition on a tangent side. Donna, what is your normal process for doing a reading? But the normal process of you doing your writing is that to my eyes, I have to dig. So either I want to find a verbal description with your own words of what is a normal process for your readings, which I don't believe is, or I don't want to find that, in which case I probably want to continue to reading this about intuition. Now, as I thought I remembered, okay, well, yeah, I do remember reading this on your ethics page. let me review your ethics page again. So I read the few paragraphs that you got in your readings page on your tarot.blogspot. I'm gonna read, which I've read before. Another thing that well, no, actually, that was implied that I sort of read this one in my email where I told you what I read. Uh, sort of implied, but then Code of Ethics, I've read this before, I'm gonna read it again. I will strive to be as responsible as possible in your readings and to help you as far as I am able. And in accordance with this, I will continually learn and acquire further wisdom regarding terror, respect all ethnic and religious backgrounds, all sexual orientations, and do not discriminate, judge, or impose any views or opinions. Although the tarot may show you what you need to know, that may not coincide with what you want to hear, etc., etc., etc. No card is simply negative. Under 18, professional advice, legal disclaimer type of thing. I have right not to read. The reading is private, confidential. Reading is private. Names of clients in question based in order not to reach tarot cards are usually accurate. Okay, so it still doesn't quite tell me verbally. Of course, going back to the readings page. You talk about your paranormal quote-unquote experiences, your educational background, though I don't quite find it easy access, although maybe it's right there. Okay, sample reading Celtic Cross. It says right there on the left, I've seen it forever. Sample reading Celtic Cross. Sample reading Tuck. It says sample reading. You've seen that forever, except that I don't do spreads, so I need to respect that and stop dismissing spreads. And it says right there sample reading, so if you want to see how Donna does a reading, maybe you should go with the link that says sample reading, dipshit. It's also easily separated semiotically from all the other things on the right, which are the blogs or articles. Are they listed as blogs or articles? Labels, so in blog archive. So and you could see the sample reading on missing flight MH370, which is fascinating, but I've had I've looked at other things for a number of reasons. So sample psychic tarot reading plus how I do my readings was the one which is about psychic and intuition, and you've made some disclaimers about those things and so on and so forth. Sample reading, bonds of synchronicity, 2 readers, 1 spread. Sample reading for a new baby. Yeah, the thing is, I wasn't interested in the spread, I wasn't interested in the baby. That's I am the dipshit. Sample reading Celtic Cross. Let me see if it's the same link. %3A Celtic Cross. You got a half a dozen simple readings, and I just didn't like the subjects or the spread notion. Now that's a different link. The one that goes to the Celtic Cross from the blogs has a different link than the one. Oh no, wait. Then the. Hold on, maybe it's the same. I was looking at the wrong thing. No, that is. Yeah, they're 2 different links. So I have a plethora of choices to see her sample readings. Dipshit. So choose one. My purpose was to have some sort of a sense of conclusion. It started from the premise this morning, along with the other premises, but the premise this morning of I wanted to have more of an understanding from your words and the cards that you would use of your readings and your theory of reading. simple psychic tarot reading plus how and you've said you're not a psychic or something. I could be wrong, but and that's the one where it was like splitting too. So could be worth to read both the part about the intuition that we're about to read and then simple reading bonds of synchronicity to spreads. That's very specific for new baby as for that's good. So I think I'd probably want to go either with simple reading Celtic Cross or that link or simple reading Celtic Cross. Let me see if it's the same thing because it looks like the URL is different, but if I'm going to open both links and see if it takes me to the same place. Wednesday, August 6th, 2014. I'm going to open the one from the blogs list. Wednesday, August 6th, 2014. The Celtic Cross. Is the URL the same or not the same? 2014 of 4 examples reading Psychic Shock. Oh, one is okay. It's a slightly different. 2014-08 sample reading Celtic Cross HTML. 2014-08 example reading Psychic Shock HTML. Hashtag more. No, wait. Oh, no. Okay. Search label sample reading Celtic Cross. No, wait. I'm looking at 2 different pages. Okay. Label sample reading Celtic Cross. Let's go with the URL that works best for my purpose. They're essentially the same thing, one leads to the other. But I'm gonna go with tarotdon.com. Excuse me. Anyway, tarot.blogspot.it, which should probably get .com or something like that, /2014/08/sample reading Celtic Cross .html. We're gonna take a screenshot wherein, if we can fit all of them in there. It's hard to do that. I'm either missing it. Let me see if I can pull it off with the other one. Then I'm gonna go with the other one because I'm trying to get the screenshot that'll make yeah. Okay, so we're gonna start with this. No, I'm having the same. Ooh, I'm having the same problem. Yeah, I'm having the same problem. I'm trying to align the image so that on my small screen I can fit all the cards that you got in the Celtic Cross in that screenshot. And it's very tricky because, let me see what happens if I, it's just that we're just gonna have to zoom out and do it this way. Screenshot, 125%. We're gonna save it as sample reading Celtic cross. Okay, here we go. 1509. I saw the 8 and then switched to 9. Sample reading Celtic cross or Celtic cross. The Celtic cross, a well-known and traditional tarot spread, has had something of a bad press lately. Indeed, it's often a lousy spread for beginners as the possible combinations and interrelationships can be extremely complex. Bar that caveat for beginners, it can be a tremendously useful spread when a problem is fuzzy, as it tends to disclose a number of issues, especially those motivations and feelings which may clarify a problem, and of which can then be picked up on for a further, more specific reading. Here is an example of using it for just that purpose. Here I present with kind permission from the querent a slightly modified version of a recently performed Celtic cross reading. I've adapted this traditional spread to best address the current state of mind of the querent. The original version was more detailed and covered the themes in more depth, but here, for the purposes of an overview and with respect to the usual lifespan for a human being in a busy world perusing a random tarot blog post, is a contracted and somewhat brutalized sample of the reading. I love the way you talk and I love the way you approach this, and it's I love this. I love this clear and articulate framework. It makes you feel like you know what you're getting into clearly and articulately. I mean, you know, the person coming to the article know what they're getting into. Samantha, not a real name, approached me with a puzzle. Sam's question. I'm feeling very down and as if I don't want to carry on anymore. I'm not quite sure why, although my life has never been easy. I recently lost my job and haven't got anywhere applying for new ones. I would also like a committed partner who's honest, but none of my relationships work out. But it's more than that. I feel my life is a message, or that there's something about me. Could a tarot reading put the pieces together for me? I chose the Queen of Cups to represent Samantha as the significator on the basis that her question relates primarily to how she feels. So at this point, I'd have to look up significator, which I've encountered a little bit, but I've never bothered to explore because I studied the primary material with tarot more so than what other people are doing with the tarot by a mile. So anyway, you know what? Let me see. Tarot significator. Meaning, might as well. Google gave me that option, so I'm taking it. The reader or diviner is the person reading the cards. The significator is a card chosen to represent the querent in the spread or layout. So the significator card is the card that is chosen to represent the querent. The spread is the pattern of cards dealt out by the reader. Cartomancy is the divination by method of using cards such as tarot cards. What are significators in a tarot reading? From Tarot Lady. The art of choosing a tarot significator from Llewellyn, very established. Finding your significator card, choosing a tarot card that best is against shuffling. Let's just go with that. Significator is a card chosen to represent the querent in the spread or layout. Google chose to go with that. Now let's go ahead and click on January 14, 2015 from the Tarot Lady. No, I'm gonna get too lost with it. Okay. chose the Queen of Cups to represent Samantha as the significator on the basis that her question relates primarily to how she feels. A photograph of the actual spread is above. The outcome position does not signify the future or possible future here. The cards only show the future on condition that the dynamics exhibited by the cards are not acted on to alter those dynamics. The cards only show the future, so in order to see the future, you can't act on the dynamics exhibited by the cards. You cannot alter the dynamics. So in other words, if you alter the dynamics of the cards, in a way you alter the future. So a photograph of the actual spread is about the outcome position does not signify the future or possible future here because of what we said, but rather the present or how she feels right now. Okay, excellent frame of understanding. The rest of the spread concerns those factors which have worked together to produce this outcome. Much as I try to take the devil's advocate side, Donna, I have to admit that and even much as I sort of enjoyed a little bit of the personality of the tarot reading that you said how not to do a tarot reading with Bob and the Grandmaster, I certainly find myself a lot more with your neutral approach. I'm not sure in the sense that there's an element of precision, focus, description, premises, framework, it's sort of a general approach that is very much like I talked about the North Star before, but it's very much like a framework, a map, a legend, coordinates. It's like having coordinates, clear coordinates. And the coordinates are relatively neutral in the sense that instead of or before telling the querent, the person, oh, you should do this, or God is like that, or the universe is all one, regardless of whether or not that's true, or I agree with that, which I agree with a lot of the platitudes, and possibly you do too. But this does not feel like, I mean, the way that you do it, I appreciate it a lot more because of that sort of structured, neutral framework quality. Other people, and there's a beauty to it, but the beauty is a matter of aesthetics, and not in terms of visuals here, but to me it's beautiful. What you're doing here is beautiful. I want to read it again just because to me it's beautiful. Sample reading, the Celtic Cross, and I see the picture, a well-known and traditional tarot spread. Information, neutral, it's well known and traditional, has had something of a bad press lately, it's putting me into context right now, and indeed it's often a lousy spread for beginners. It's letting me know as the possible combination into relationships can be extremely complex, letting me know what the scoop, and also with you're not saying, oh, this is my opinion, that this is something that obviously it's reflecting this. It's almost assumed that another tarot reader would probably, the majority of other tarot readers would agree with this, with what you're saying. Bar the caveat for beginners. So I'm giving you this claim. I'm letting you know what the scoop is. Be aware. It can be tremendously useful when a problem is fuzzy. That's just because of the number of issues, especially so this is. I love this. Here's an example for that purpose, so that if you're reading and it's like, wait, for that purpose, did I miss the purpose? Yeah, the purpose. What is the purpose? Disclose a number of issues. It can be okay, hold on a second. Especially this motivation and feelings which may clarify, anyway, which can then be picked up, can disclose a number of issues, especially any of which can then be picked up on for a further, more specific reading. So the purpose, I think, would be arguably for the whole everything in that paragraph, disclose a number of issues, motivations and feelings, which clarify a problem, which can then be picked up on for a further, more specific reading. The original version was, I'm using this from quote unquote Sam, but I'm making some slight variations. It's this is the reason why I'm making these slight variations. Here's the problem that the query came with, and you can already see, well, that would require a lot of cards. Here's the reason why I chose that significator. This is so, it's like, it's not just that the coordinates, it's that the coordinates relate to each other. I really appreciate this. When I say that I feel the beauty in this, it's like every element of the grid work here, of the coordinates. It's like, why do you have this piece here? I have this piece here because of this reason. Why do we have that piece here? I have that piece here because of that reason, and they're all interconnected. So it's a grid that makes sense. It's a map. It can be it's at the same time simplified and complex. It's at the time accessible, easily accessible, and open to endless navigation. But all of that comes with clarity and a sense and an effect that it will give you the coordinates to find what you need, whether it's on a simplified level or on a complex level. It lets you know you're going to be able to find your way around in this. It feels like a functional grid. It feels like a functional set of coordinates. I love this. I love the flow. I love the because then there's also this would work for an alien, but it's also catered to a human sensitivity, both whether it's the current sensitivity or the casual reader's sensitivity. It measures space, time, personality. It's universally approachable. So if I have the shop in the mall, or the store where there's foot traffic, or the place on the internet where there's traffic, and I want to enable as many people as possible to have good access to the Terra experience, this would be perfect. If it's side by side with the focus on identify what you want to be happy about, or if that's the wrong phrase, identify what you want to achieve. Well, identify your objectives, which comes hand in hand with identifying your problems, but fundamentally identify your objectives. But this is I love this. I love this. Okay, all right, okay, hold on. I'm not liking my voice again. Hold on. All right, but now I'm coming home and finding what I want. I was at the minute 28. I examined my mirror, and I finished saying that at 28:47, which is, if you can read me, you can be with me. Okay, now I'm still feeling a little bit uncomfortable. I want to implement and or produce and implement the most effective and efficient way for me to be happy about this recording. I want to implement and or produce and implement. I was feeling a little anxiety because I thought I was going to reach closure with this fourth recording, but I'm thinking there might be so much material here that this might turn out to be long, but I have all the time in the world. I can do this in phases. Alright, so I want to implement and or produce and implement the most effective and efficient way for me to always desire only what or desires for me. It's AOHR. But because that's a new draft, let's also go with based on the shaman stuff. At nextgenshaman.com, I want to implement and or produce and implement the most effective and efficient way for me to always desire only what logic desires for me. I want to implement and or produce and implement the most effective and efficient way for me to always desire only what God desires for me. I want to implement and or produce and implement. If you're coming from somewhere else, make sure they understand that what I say when I say God and logic, I don't mean what is being conventionally meant with this word these days. But I'm going to continue because if you're coming from the middle or somewhere else and you're not Donna, bear in mind that this is, it says on the top of the video, it's probably going to say Donna 8. So I want to implement and or produce and implement the most effective and efficient way for me to be happy about this recording. A photograph of the actual spread is above. The outcome position does not signify the future, possible future here. The cards only show the future. Okay, the rest of the spread concerns those factors which have worked or together to produce this outcome. I'm not sure I like or, but who knows? Anyway, I'm still. Wait, there was a mantra I did recently that was very helpful. Something about I want to implement and or produce and implement the most effective and efficient way for my emotions to always that was an excellent mantra. We're just gonna have to go with I want to implement and or produce and implement the most effective and efficient way for my desires to I want to implement and or produce and implement the most effective and efficient way for me to always be happy about my relationships with women. I want to implement and or produce and implement the most effective and efficient way for me to desire only what God desires for me. I want to implement and or produce and implement the most effective and efficient way for me to desire only what logic desires for me. I want to implement and or produce and implement the most effective and efficient way for me to always desire only what logic desires for me. I want to implement and or produce and implement the most effective and efficient way for me to always be happy about my relationships with women. The reason I'm saying this is that I know the reason I'm saying this. Let's focus on the text. Or not. I'm having a visually aesthetic, unpleasant experience right now with something about the tarot blog that I've been staring at. Here's what I'm going to do. Let's at least enlarge the text big enough so that I do not see the beige, the color of the frames. Now, this either I see a border of a color that I don't like, or I miss a few letters. So I'm gonna miss a few letters, which is gonna bring the focus even more on the text. The outcome position does not signify the feature, but rather the result. So a copy of the reading. Samantha returned a copy of the reading to me with her feedback in red. Okay, so I'm missing part of the A and part of the D and the period. How fortuitous, how synchronous it is that I was talking about my sensitivity to color, and we're talking about copies and red. Thus acknowledging the role, which is a more neutral word than importance, but the role of color. I'm still uncomfortable with, what I could do is I could copy the whole thing, and no, that's okay. Okay, this is a fairly good compromise. Now then. What would happen if I were to okay, covering situation. Covering situation influences surrounding you at the moment. Is it where or when? Where you are right now. The tower. The tower is a collapse, often catastrophic. Everything you thought was safe and structured has been blown to smithereens. That's why I call it I see truth. I don't call it the tower. I see truth. And it doesn't have to be, it may feel catastrophic. It would be worthwhile at this point to go to nextgentarot.com, the sample or simple card keys, and look at card 16 and how I make comments above and beyond the next gen shorthand, above and beyond the phrase I see truth. And I'm not surprised that as I'm feeling more aligned with the cosmos, that I went from, and I knew that that was coming from my love of your grid, to my beginning to feel a difference as in a not alignment with how traditional. So Donna, Except that I don't think you're listening to this. Houston, we have a problem. Okay. I want to implement and or produce and implement the most effective and efficient way for me to be happy about reading Donna's simple reading of the Celtic cross. Either I'm feeling, I'm getting some feelings of resistance. It's too complicated to make it so that my sensitivities will see to it that it's black, and I want to read it. The towers are collapsed, often catastrophic. This is a standard operating procedure. Everybody says that about the tower. Everything you thought was safe and structured has been blown to smithereens. This includes your fragile sense of self, which I gather from looking at all the cards here has been dependent upon a life assembled together, brick by careful brick. To right. I feel like a construction worker on a, okay, so this is Sam speaking in red. To right. I feel like a construction worker on a ruined building site again and again. So we're intermixing Sam's words in red with, so it's like dead on. The card is dead on, of course. It seems sudden and overwhelming. Okay, so Donna says, it seems sudden and overwhelming, but here it's both formed out of yet simultaneously. It seems sudden and overwhelming, but here it's both formed out of yet simultaneously demolished by the forces surging up through the card in the below position. The below card concerns the formation of yourself, or who you take yourself to be, through the unconscious and your personal history. Are you talking about, because I don't know these standards about, does the below position refer to something? Anyway, let's keep reading, okay? I don't know a lot of the other references, so I might as well keep going with this. The below card concerns the formation of yourself, of who you take yourself to be, through the unconscious and your personal history. That card situates the main external hits. The other more immediate cards contribute to and reinforce it. Those same volcanic forces responsible for both your creation and destruction finally explode into the tower apprehension of an entire life in tatters, and relates most forcefully to your inner life and self-identity. Sam, you mean my world is rubbish because of how I see it? Donna, it's not really a recent bolt from the blue. It's not out of nowhere, but the collapse is absolute, as if it had been, and it feels sudden to you at the moment, although you've no doubt been close to the feelings before, to these feelings before. Yes, as Sam says. The card in question is the Seven of Swords, stemming from a loss of faith in others and eventuating in the present crisis of self. Starting to feel comfortable again. You're using the signifiers as you're used to them, and as the community is mostly used to them, and it works perfectly. Our sense of selves are created in large part through how we're treated by others. No shit. Forces from the past, tripped by near and more recent disappointments, has blown apart the self that you have built. It's always been precarious. It always is for anyone. Our sense of self is given by others. We recognize ourselves in and through how others situate us. The corollary is that the self-conception can also be taken away by others. That's not to say we can't take responsibility for ourselves and try to set out afresh with altered perceptions and resolving on a new project of who we want to be. But we are invulnerable atomic selves, free floating in a cosmos, immune from the actions of others. The self is always violable. Sam, I think I see what you mean. I guess a punch in the face and being called a bitch would be violating and ruin a fun night out, even if you try not to let it bother you. I like it. One of you speaks intellectual, the other one of you speaks American. Crosses / obstacles. What's in the way? What might help or hinder? Conflicts, tensions, hang-ups, blocks. Six of Pentacles. The card shows a man in a position of authority, charitably, or perhaps for some other reason, dishing out pentacles, usually taken to symbolize money. Now, the Six of Pentacles from Marco Nizzoli's The Secret Tarot is the card. We're getting intimate here. Is the card that represents, or that I don't know, it used to represent years ago, my permanent gratification with women. I usually do cards that represent me, but sometimes I do cards that represent something. And my biggest problem is my frustration, which was anxiety and even to depression and angst and horror. But ultimately, you can narrow it down to a dissatisfaction or a generic term of frustration. I thought, what is the opposite of frustration? It's gratification, which also works well with the notion of the opposite sex. Although for me, the emphasis is on the mental and the visual more so than the physical, although there's all aspects to it. But so the Six of Pentacles, which I hated that card when it came out, but then I grew to understand more and more good things about it. But represented me. It represented represented my gratification. Not me, my gratification, my permanent gratification with women. I did an Italian, so it was, let me, soddisfazione or satisfaction. My satisfaction, soddisfazione permanente con le donne. I'm not even sure I remember the phrase now, it's been quite a few years, but that was an important card from the Nizzoli's tarot deck. The card shows a man in a position of authority, charitably, or perhaps for some other reason, dishing out pentacles, usually taken to symbolize money and or some other form of sustenance to what appeared to be penitence, requiring succor at his feet. Sometimes this chap is the Aquarian, but here I'm pretty sure that's you, Sam, crawling around at his feet. This must be making you angry, crawling around for handouts and help. It's serious. Your well-being is being affected by your finances and you're not getting the help you need from those who could and should be providing it. Sam, yes, that's welfare and my stingy ex. Is it stingy or stingy? Stingy. I always get mixed up. Donna, it's the major obstacle or block right now. It's a form of injustice, which, as the second card of the inner cross forming despair, means that this lack of charity or benefactor has been the most immediate cause of the current distress. Any idea who has been treating you unfairly, perhaps? Sam, as I answer it, welfare. My ex owes me money and I was made redundant 6 months ago. Donna, sixes are about harmony and balance, so there's a deal of tension. Unequal give and take and disparity in your relations with others at the moment. I feel that they are in a position to do the right thing, but won't. The authority figure in the card is holding the scales of justice. You also have the major arcana card of justice in the spread and the King of Swords, redoubling and consolidating the theme of justice. Which tells me The people you're trying to deal with do know the truth of the matter and the right or moral behavior they should be showing you, but they're not acting on it. Below, personal history influences, experiences from the past, motivations, the unconscious, where you're coming from, internal factors at work, Seven of Swords. Here's the important stuff swirling around in your psyche, contributing. Okay, the Seven of Swords in Marco Nizzoli's deck. There's a secret meaning in that what you see is not what is. Something to keep in mind. Just a note. Here's the important stuff swirling around in your psyche, contributing to that life as a disaster sense of catastrophe. Sevens are assessment. Is there something you can't let go of and which continues to be inspected and thought upon? This would not slot in with our previous two cards. The Seven of Swords is theft. Here it's about you. A part of you was stolen away in the far past. The guy in the card seems pretty smug and happy about what he's getting away with. Whoever has harmed you in the past hasn't been brought to any kind of justice. You haven't had any kind of apology or redemption from those who have taken from you. I think this is mostly one person in particular. I'm reluctant to say this, but I often get this card when there's been some form of childhood abuse. Sam, I was sexually abused between the ages of 8 and 14 by a relative. The scene here is usually interpreted as a kind of tented military outpost. That's not what it's telling me here, and that guy even looks a little like a showman or jester in that red fez. The encampment reminds me of a carnival fairground, not a military base. Does that mean anything to you? Zoos, fairground, carnivals, a social space where some kind of festivity is carried out. It could even be a church fete. How do you pronounce that? Or gala. Sam, school play. That was the first time he picked me up after and was supposed to be looking after me. Donna. In any event, this guy celebrates what he thinks is a sneaky victory. Two swords are still standing. He hasn't managed to take everything from you. 5 swords are being carried away. Numerologically, 5s are turmoil and chaos. Sam, it's been that ever since. Donna. The two left make me think of what the 2s represent in numerology. So I would guess that you've had to take a lot of decisions in relation to what happened to you and struggled with the best resolution to whatever has happened in the past. Sam, I had counseling later on because I hated myself. Donna, I think some people know or knew in the background is a small group of figures, but they have their backs turned to what's going on. They're ignoring it. There are other ways of interpreting the figures, but here I feel that the figures are in denial. Who are these people, Sam? Is it family? Sam, yes. Donna, your peace of mind, your childhood perhaps was taken away, and it's the sword suit. It was a colossal injustice. This card at the bottom informs the quote-unquote crown card at the top. Swords are also the suit of conflict and communication. It could be important to talk about this, Sam. Now we go to crown. Nascent forces taking shape, hopes, intentions, conscious goal, conscious awareness. King of Swords. Truth and justice again. 53:30 already.